Malware with a choice, do I hold you ransom or do I use you for mining?
So Bindu, I understand you're looking at a story about some malware that can choose whether or not to be ransomware or crypto mining?
Yes, Jim. So this was an interesting read where they were calling it the malner, right? So it's either going to sort of act as a malware or as a crypto miner, and the malware will actually choose whether to install, a crypto mining miner in the laptop or the computer that it's affecting, or it will go ahead and ask for ransom by encrypting files, and you'll have to pay the money.
So it's kind of interesting because usually we'll see families of malware that are ransomware, or we'll see families of malware that are cryptocurrency miners. We don't rarely see them blended together where they'll do one or the other depending on what that device looks like. So it's interesting from that perspective.
This goes to also show that with the increased awareness around ransomware and around generally malware, and we're talking a lot about it on our show around crypto mining, we see that the strains of malware today are being evolved for them to monetize and use some of these ways to make money. And it followed all the steps of what a traditional malware would do, and at the end it has the automated feature to be able to make that pick. The amount of checks that it runs on these systems, it sort of scans the environment of the machine to find out what antivirus or anti-malware you're running. It looks to look at the computer names. It looks to see if you have a Bitcoin wallet on the machine or not. It goes through several layers of checks, and we talk about it a lot when we speak to our customers and different organizations that we're talking to, that at the end of the day this all started with a spammed phishing campaign. So it is that link that you clicked on, and after you click on the link, it basically is using the Microsoft or the Adobe certificate. So don't think just because it's a known name, it doesn't mean that you will click on this and start executing it. A lot of users generally think, hey, this is an Adobe update, so I'm just going to let it run so that I need to use my Adobe Reader. But think about it, when you start clicking on these things, you should know that your company typically will provide you a notice of updates, right? They'll tell you that there are things that are being updated, so don't click and start getting your own updates for things. Folks need to be aware of not clicking on these links. Don't run these executables. Think about where the certificate is from, and when we train our users, we do need to evolve and make sure that it's not just for the techie geek. For an average user today, they need to know all these things, right?
Right. I mean, that's a really good point about the user education as malware has evolved, especially over the past couple of years here. The different monetization schemes that they're using, like ransomware and cryptocurrency mining, we need to let our users know these are the kinds of things the bad guys are doing. They're not just using your machine like the old days to send more spam emails to other people and stupid things like that. They're doing all these other techniques, so that's a really good point.
I thought it was interesting that this particular malware chooses to install, or chooses to be ransomware if it discovers there's a cryptocurrency wallet already on the system. Otherwise, it'll mine it itself. So it's only holding somebody's cryptocurrency for ransom, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Yeah, and I thought also geographically, like I was looking at some of the stats, it's mainly today in Russia, little sprinkle of it in India. These are countries that are heavily investing into the whole Bitcoins and in the cryptocurrencies, right? So the average population there is very aware of these things and probably are mining, and that's really what they're going after. So it's an easy bang for the buck where you're saying, okay, you have two choices. If not either, you're still going ahead and infecting more of the mass machines. So it's a 95% spread is what I was reading in Russia, also because it comes across as financial documents, right? So tendency for you to open an attachment that says anything financial is higher, right?
Right. Yeah, it's interesting, but like we were talking about in an earlier story, even though ransomware is kind of on the decline, it's still there, and this is a really good example of why you should, stay vigilant about all that.
And this goes to show, right, the threat actors are constantly evolving. They're tweaking, their existing infrastructure to make sure that they can do these things. So as an organization, we clearly need to, sort of stay ahead of the game and, be educating our users. Really run, what I've also seen is security awareness and training. It has to really be a gamified exercise, if you will, for users to really be involved and aware of this, right? Because when you're reading an article like this, the first thought is, it's not going to happen to me, right?
Right.
I wouldn't ever click on or open such things unless it happens to you and you are actually opening it at that point, right? So,
talking about these types of threats is important because it kind of gives us as security analysts and incident responders some knowledge that we might need to let other people know that this is what's going on so that they're aware and that they know to protect themselves from these kinds of threats.